podcast because down in your heart, you feel you have something to say. And I feel my job is to help you overcome it and to reach within yourself for a greater sense of purpose. That is opinion writing. First of all, I would like to address that when you write from the pronoun of I, it is a very scary place. I think this, I believe that, I would like to see this type of change, I'm calling for action. It's a very frightening place to write from a place of such vulnerability, because with that territory comes criticism, right? There's going to be hate mail. People get nasty. We only have to go to the internet to see comments that are very hateful. However, if you have the kind of fortitude that can brush aside that kind of criticism for the greater good that you feel you are doing in the world, then perhaps you have the stomach for this kind of work. Because really what opinion writing is the art of persuasion. You are trying to bring people over to your point of view. And honestly, not everyone is going to agree. There are going to be people who are going to be absolutely intractable in their opinions and their feelings, and anybody who comes across as an opponent, they will hate. And that comes with the territory. But think about it this way. A column can be about 500 to 800 words, ideally, and that's a very short space in order to convey a very powerful message. And what your job is not necessarily to convert everybody in one reading, but your job is to have people come away and say, I never thought about it that way before. Or perhaps to bring a fresh angle or a new aspect of thinking, an insight that makes people say, well, I learned something new today. Now, again, sometimes the hate mail comes and it says, well, I noticed that you didn't bring this up, or you didn't mention this, or you're trying to hide these facts. Not at all. 500 to 800 words is never enough to cover comprehensively one topic. But what you're trying to do is ideally start a conversation. Be one of the leaders in starting a national dialogue about something that is going on. What is down at the heart of what we do as columnists, opinion writers, essayists? We're actually reaching out to the public and taking a particular experience, a particular current event, and telling others, you're not alone. Many people may feel the insecurity or fear or things that are going on in a particular situation, but they don't have the voice to articulate it. So you, as an opinion writer, are speaking for them. At the heart of it is, you are not alone. I have to tell you, when I first wrote my book, the first one, The Art of Column Writing, which was a book about the basics on the various genres of column writing, whether it be opinion, lifestyle, humor, religion, I had a very deep insecurity about even writing that particular book, my first book. Why? Because at the time I felt and still feel this way, I'm not a leader, a thought leader. I'm not famous. I'm not a celebrity. I don't carry any weight. I do write a column, but so what? So do a lot of other people. Who am I to be calling famous people like Dave Barry, Ariana Huffington, different Mike Masters, different people, Pulitzer Prize winning columnists? Who am I to call them and ask questions about their craft? And, all of us can be very paralyzed with the idea of the critics, the people who are saying, you don't know how to write. Who are you? You have no credibility. You're nobody. But I had to overcome that insecurity, much as you will, by really reaching down to what is my purpose. And I had to get past my ego and the fear of criticism for myself to say, what is my purpose in writing? And my purpose was, because I was president of the National Society of Newspaper Columnists, I had access to people, to accomplished writers that everyday folks didn't have. I had the ability to ask them the kind of questions that other writers would love to ask, to get their insights. And so that became my mission. And rather than think in terms of personal criticism of me, I was thinking in terms of how am I serving this realm of writers who really want to know and don't have the kind of access that I do. Well, when you circle back to your opinion writing, this is something that you can do. You have to find a way within yourself to get past your own ego and think about how your piece is going to help somebody else not feel alone, how it will help readers form an intelligent opinion about whatever may be going on. So let's take a look at some of the strategies that Pulitzer Prize winning columnists use to create outstanding commentary. In my book, my second book, The Art of Opinion Writing, I interviewed 12 to 13 columnists about their particular tips and strategies, how they do it. And originally I was going to write the book from a point of view of advice, strategies, tips, insights. But I very soon came to understand and realize that you cannot divorce the strategies and opinion process from the personality of the individual, from the individual writer. The opinion writer brings so much of their personal self and their personality into the writing. You can't divorce it. And so that's why I structured The Art of Opinion Writing into 12 Pulitzer Prize winning columnists. So you could see how different personalities approach that craft. Everybody's individual. Sometimes the strategies would seem to conflict with each other, but they work for the individual. And that's the beauty of what you are doing. You can be completely yourself in the way you express your opinion.
Thank you, Suzette. That was quite an insightful lecture, and I'm sure our students must have learned a lot from your experiences of over 30 years in the American column writing and opinion writing industry. I would now like to open the session for the question answer round, and we have lots of questions, but we have very little time.
Okay, so the first question is from our student Yash, and he wants to know from you, what happens when politicians start using the journalist as a tool to convey misinformation? How do we tackle such a situation?
Yes, what a great question. Yes. Well, we see that happening all the time. And I think that it all comes back to, if you are a journalist and if you are a reporter, which is very different from a columnist, an opinion writer, because again, an opinion writer is, what their personal opinion is, and a reporter is supposed to be getting all the facts and not inserting him or herself into the story, right? But I do think that it all comes back to widening your sources, maybe having to go around and find someone who can direct you to the truth. And you know what? This is really hard work. Fact finding is really hard work. And there is no doubt that misinformation is being spread. And I think that, a good journalist, a good reporter, and if you're a reporter, and there's many opinion columns where you're reporting facts so that it makes you a reporter, that you have to take it upon yourself to be diligent and double check your facts, not take things at face value, and not succumb to the not succumb to the temptation that you're in the inner circle, and that if you report, as you're told, or what you're told at face value, that somehow you're going to get in closer with people of power. I think this is one of the big temptations. I think you have to do your homework and expand your network of sources. And, just because someone says it is, doesn't mean it is. You have to get to the bottom, find the statistics, find records, get someone who's really in charge of these things to corroborate those kind of things. I don't know how easy it is there. We have the Freedom of Information Act here, which might make it a little easier. But I think it really falls on the personal, first and foremost, it falls on the personal integrity of the journalist. Otherwise, all we are stenographers to the powerful. That's, and I wish that's not, I didn't make that up. I'm trying to think of the journalist who coined that phrase. But you don't want to be just a stenographer to the powerful.
So the next question is also from Yash. He asks, how can I keep my opinion in isolation from the organization I'm working for if both of them are not in the same line?
Oh boy, we run into that a lot here in the US, and I'll give you a perfect example. Dave Lieber of the Dallas Morning News, okay? He is the watchdog columnist, and what that means is he's constantly exposing corrupt businesses, corrupt political practices. Oh, he gets death threats. But the thing is, the newspaper sometimes won't let him write certain things because it's too inflammatory. So what he's done is he has his own blog, he has his own newsletter, and he sends it out to his subscribers. They only go to his subscribers, and in a way that is divorced from the paper. He's free to do what he wants on his own time, as long as he's not necessarily aligning it with the newspaper. So I don't know how it works out there. You might be able to write about something that you're not writing about in your publication, on your own blog. You might be able to address other things that necessarily aren't, credited back to the newspaper. I'm not really sure, but I'm not really sure how it works out there. But I would say if you have your own blog or your own publication, that's a good way to divorce yourself from the place you work at. Do you think that is that possible out there, Meenakshi?
I don't think this happens here so much. It is not so frequent, but yes, blogging is there. But organizations generally, if you're an employee of a particular organization, you're responsible employee of that organization, and the organization has the right to restrict you from having opinions on your personal blogs as opposed to the newspaper. Or sometimes they take outside opinion and they give a disclaimer that this is a personal opinion and the paper does not necessarily endorse it. So these are the two ways we do
that. Yeah. See if you can get that. If you could get a clear understanding with your employer that I'm going to do this blog and you're not going to be named, it's not going to be connected with any of your business. These are my personal opinions, and all that. That might kind of smooth the way. But again, if you're going to be writing those kind of things, make sure you're based on facts and research, and readers respect how you earned your opinion. Because too many times, if you're just parroting what you hear and you're writing inflammatory stuff based on what you're parroting or hear from other people, you could get into a lot of trouble from that. So always, source everything that you write about.
So here's another question. This is by Shivangi. She wants to know, she says that you've been on TV a lot and you've also been a newspaper writer. She wants to know what are the qualities of a good anchor if she needs to be carrying a strong opinion into the show?
Sharondi, thank you for that question. I have my own TV show. It's called It's All Right, WRITE, with Suzette, where I present authors, books, and their works. And that's basically where, where my television persona comes from. I think that what has really propelled me forward in the direction that you would like to go is my ability to speak smoothly and to interview people. And I think that being able to interview people is always a good skill to have if you're going to pursue a career in TV. Because as you say, well, I want to be able to present my opinions and things like that. Well, I don't know how it works in India, but unless you have a following of some kind, or a popular blog, or you are a featured writer in a publication, I know how difficult it is just to come up out of nowhere and appear on a TV show. So I guess my advice to you is to, see what you can do. Like here in the US, there's a lot of local TV stations. And how I got my TV station is I'm not paid by my TV on my TV show. I do it because I felt that it was a great platform for myself to be able to further my own career as a public speaker, a teacher, a writer, an author. And so you might think about volunteering, to maybe create your own little show. That's what I did. I said, I know a lot of writers. I can interview them on a half-hour show, and they picked me up. I have been doing that show now for 10 years. And so that might be something that you could consider. Also, I don't know if they have a Toastmasters out there in India, but Toastmasters has been a wonderful way of honing and polishing your ability as a public speaker. And I think that if you are able to do that, you can become a very sought after anchor person or TV personality, because you have to be able to engage and to speak smoothly and think on your feet. Like, for example, for this presentation, I had maybe 7 points on a piece of paper to keep me on track, but I'm speaking from the heart. I'm just speaking spontaneously. And I think that has been an ability that's been honed over, the last decade with interviewing people for my articles and speaking on shows with authors and all of that. And you become very adept at it after a short while. So I would, encourage you to pursue that.
Okay, I have another question from Advait. He wants to know that you mentioned in your when you were speaking earlier, you had said that it is okay to be biased when you're writing an opinion piece, but he wants to know that if you're biased, won't you be vulnerable to compromise on facts and statements?
When I say biased, I mean, okay, let's take there are 2 sides to an issue. All right. And then let me go back to my column, that my beginning column that was so powerful that it actually got me syndicated nationally, the subject of abortion. That is a very controversial, very divisive subject, correct? All right. So I am biased, okay? I am biased in that I would be, in my life, I made the personal choice against abortion. Now, am I going to write a column in the vaster scheme of things, encompassing every single person and telling them what to do or condemning people? My bias was clear in my personal experience that I chose against it and how it benefited me. That was biased, okay? when you are writing about something that is a controversial subject, you're obviously, as an opinion writer, going to take a strong view on one side. But if you take that side and clearly convey facts, statistics, research, find a way to weave that in where you make a compelling argument. Think about it as a debate. You're biased on one side. Sure, the other side's going to have its argument, but this is your position. So does it make you open to compromising your position? Well, I don't know that you compromise your position. We're all human beings, and we can change our minds as we go along and as we grow and evolve. But at any given point in time, you're taking this side of the debate. And you're not writing to convince the other side of anything, because they're not going to change their mind. You are writing for the readership that is maybe on the fence, maybe wants more information, maybe needs a little more guidance on how to make sense of this particular topic. And that's what you're doing. And that's why you can be biased. And think of being biased, again, as being solidly on one side of a debate. That's maybe a good way, a better use of the words. And again, I just feel that you're helping the person make sense of the world through facts, research, the authenticity of your experience, or your ability to convey somebody else's story truthfully and with emotion, so people can understand what's going on. When I wrote that abortion column, it was my idea. Do I think that I'm going to solve the abortion debate in the U.S.? No. But I thought maybe there are some young women out there who are on the fence about whether they're going to do this or not. And my whole column was, hey, ladies, it really can work out in ways better than you ever expected. So think about it like that.
So Satvik Iyengar wants to know that where do you draw a line when you're having a comical or humor approach to writing about religion or spirituality?
Well, I don't know. Well, where I draw the line is that for myself as a writer, I don't make fun of religion. I don't make fun of people who believe differently from me. I often write with self-effacing humor. I make, like maybe I don't understand something, or maybe, or perhaps maybe a particular religious tenet might hold that I should be kinder or more compassionate. And guess what, folks? I'm not. And I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress, but this is what I'm facing right now. And you know what? I'm not kind. And that's the kind of humor, that I think, that I often use. I don't really like it when, I know that, it's all a personal matter of taste and humor. I don't think there's one path to great humor. I think you have to look inside of yourself, and if you're a funny person, and if your particular humor, if you're really good at zinging people, especially powerful people who are maybe not doing the right thing, well, good, that's fine, but I think that you have to think about, in what way is your humor bringing us together or making a point. I happen to love people who can be very pointed and biting in their humor. I actually really like that, because I think that the rich and powerful often need to get their tires popped, So I think that that's a really good thing. But when but it really depends on your subject matter. Are you talking about politics? If you're talking about religion, then I draw the line at making fun of other people's beliefs or what they believe in. I'm not beyond pointing out the hypocrisy of some people who claim to be so-called Christians and they're doing terrible things. I'm not above pointing that out. But, the basic faiths or the basic beliefs, I really don't like to make fun of other people.
So Ada has a very relevant question. She wants to know, how can an opinion writer actually, what can he do if his idea or his opinion is rejected by a newspaper who follows a certain line? So you have to align yourself to what a line a newspaper follows. So where exactly do you place yourself then?
Well, haven't you just hit the world of journalism's problem on the head? That's a really good question. And this is the problem now, there was that controversy in the New York Times where where James Bennett, the editor, was fired, or let go because he featured a writer whose opinions were very, very different, where they didn't like the opinions being presented, right? And Barry Weiss, one of the columnists, quit in protest, saying that, this is the problem. A diversity of opinions are no longer being promoted. You have to almost follow the party line. And if you're not, it's not only are you not included, but you can be canceled or fired or, persecuted because you feel differently from everybody else. This is a problem. So, I don't know how it works out there. If there are competing publications where perhaps your opinion would be more welcome, it might be a situation where you might have to, again, create your own blog and again, base it on facts, research, and be willing to take the flack. I really don't know what the culture or the situation is when it comes to serious oppositional opinion out there. But the only thing I can also think of, and believe me, rejection is a big thing here too. If you have a way of getting through to the people in charge, at that publication, and this is where I always talk to the person who answers the phone. I don't know if it works out there, but I often ask them, I have a question. I have this column about whatever, and I don't describe the whole thing. I just say and it's timely, and I would really like to get it to the right person. Who would that be, and what's their email? And that way you bypass going through the labyrinth of past three or all that. See if you can find someone. And then what I might do is I might write them an email that says, I have this column. It is not an opinion or a position common to your newspaper. However, I've researched it well. There are many, many people who also feel this voices their position. And I think that this might increase your readership. Now, unless it's a propaganda publication, they might reject you. But if it's a publication that's really looking to expand all of its readership, then you might have a chance by saying, this could really bring more eyeballs to your page. And, why don't you give it a try? Why don't you print 3 of them? I have 3 sample columns. I'm willing to let you print them. Why don't you see if there's any feedback? And even angry feedback means people are reading your publication. Make a case for yourself that the benefit to you is that you are different. You are bringing a different voice. Why not? And again, the art of our writing is persuasion. See if you can find the persuasive powers to say, all right, let's give this person a chance.
So Trisha Deka wants to know if it is a controversial issue in which people have already made up their minds on both sides of the spectrum, then how does your opinion even count? And how can you does your column have the power to change opinions in volatile subjects or controversial subjects like homophobia or some such other thing?
Well, yes. I think of it as, yes, I do think we make a difference. Maybe the change isn't overnight, maybe it's not instantaneous, but it is change. And change does come slowly. And we all know that there are algorithms now that, that tend to send to us things that we already believe in, right? That we already want to believe, and the division is becoming wider and wider all the time. But here's the thing. Maybe there is a great division between this party and that party. But maybe if you can find a way to be a unifying voice, a voice of balance, a voice of reason, maybe that will make you stand out in the crowd. I have to tell you, one of the most gratifying emails that I got was, I wrote a July 4th column, that was our Independence Day. And the big issue out here is racism, institutional racism, Black Lives Matter, the killing of George Floyd by police brutality. That was a big thing. How can I not write about that, even though it doesn't necessarily fit into the bailiwick of religion? But don't all religious people, believers or not, hold morality to be a true concept, right? So what I did was I wrote a column about it, and I wrote from a perspective of, these are the myths. Black people need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Why don't they be like everybody else, right? And work hard. That's a myth. Well, I pointed out that the other argument is there's no institutional racism. They just think that, they're always complaining. So I brought some statistics into play. I talked about, why is it that Black people only make up 13% of the American population, but they make up 37% of inmates in penitentiaries? Why is it that a Black woman is 5 times more likely to be imprisoned than a white woman with the same crime? And I had studies to back that up. I said, are we to believe that people of color are more fierce as criminals? Or can we say that that there is an institutional bias in our court system that allows for a profoundly more a much greater number, of incarceration among people of color, Black and brown? Those are the facts that speak to it. And then I said, and when you imprison such a profoundly huge number of people, it affects their ability to make money. It affects their ability to keep their families together. You get a record, people are going to say, I'm not hiring you. It might be a minor record, but you have one. And when an overwhelming number in our population has records like that, and they happen to be people of color, can you really say institutional racism doesn't exist? And then I went on about how Jesus was the original, activist, because he did not surround himself with the powerful and the rich. He surrounded himself with everyday, the fishermen, the people who people wouldn't even associate with, the tax collectors, So I brought it in that way. So the point of it is that, am I going to change everybody? Oh no, I got hate mail saying, you're the problem, you're part of the problem, okay? But I also got emails from people who actually wrote to me and said, that was the first time I've ever read it that way. I feel ashamed for having held those opinions all my life, and now I feel I'm going to think differently about African American people and their situation. Wow. That really made me feel like my career was worth it in 1 second. So that's the kind of thing, invite feedback, let people respond to you. They're your lifeline. They'll let you know, oh, wow, never thought about it that way before. That's your job. Not to change everything overnight. We're just hammering away at at the granite little by little, but we're the hammers. We're doing it, you and I.
So I think we are running out of time, so I'll round off. I have a couple of more questions before we end this session.
Okay.
So, one question is by Anushka Sharma. She wants to know, is there any place of skepticism in an opinion column? And I mean, do you have to always have a conclusion, or can you throw a question?
You can throw a question. There are many columns, like I say, spark a national dialogue. You're not going to solve the problem, but you are creating a dialogue, a talk about something. You're having people think about something. One thing that I would suggest is that if you're going to throw out a problem, then you should have at least a potential solution to it. You should have a call to action. And again, your call to action doesn't necessarily have to be perfect or comprehensively researched. Maybe it could be as simple as in one of my columns, I remember saying, do you have any Black friends? And if you don't, why is that? I'm not putting out the solution that having Black friends is going to necessarily resolve all of our ills, but it's a start, because if you know someone personally and you like them, you're less likely to talk against them in the collective they, because you know someone you really like. And so I think it's a start. It's a small start, but it's a call to action.
So Satvik wants to know that in 2013, Jeff Bezos' second establishment, Nash Holdings, bought Washington Post. Doesn't this put a restraint on journalists of the newspaper to write about Amazon?
You would think so. You definitely would think so. And although I have not researched the Washington Post track record on covering Bezos and Amazon, I know that other publications have. But, you bring up something that is something we are struggling with in the U.S. The fact that, hedge fund owners are buying up newspapers and they are cutting out reporters and columnists and paring everything down so that their bottom line can be more productive. Yeah, definitely. This is a problem. And I again appeal to the courage. This is why it really does take courage to stand out and be the voice. Will your paper say, no, we're not writing that? Maybe. But again, if you have some facts and you can bolster your opinion as a reporter, or your article as a reporter, or your opinion as a columnist, you're more likely to have it run. But yeah, that's a huge umbrella question, and we only have a couple of minutes, but thank you for asking.
Yeah. Okay, just one more last question. So giving your writing a personality takes time. It also requires that you have a very clear sense of who you are and try different forms of writing to explore your range of writing skills. So what should be the starting point for any young journalist who wants her opinion to matter? This is a question by Sunita.
I think it's really the craft of writing. Think about something that moves you personally. Always come from a place of emotion first. Let's say, I don't know, you take something in your own personal life that always struck you as unfair. Perhaps maybe your mother could have been a brilliant surgeon and she was denied the ability to go to school. Maybe that might be your subject. Pretend, okay? So you feel an emotion in there and then write about it. Think about, what's the point? Maybe you're going to compare your own ability to go to school and how you're living the dream or the legacy of your mother. Let's just pretend. And so you're structuring your column in that, this is what I want to say, This is the story I'm going to use, and this is how I'm going to, this is the point, this is the takeaway that I want my readers to know, that education is personal and it is beneficial, and I have a purpose to my life. I'm living out my mother's dream. And the call to action is to those people, perhaps parents, who are saying, well, I don't know if I really want to send my kids to school. Maybe it might push them, it might tip them in the point, toward like more education, better education, investing in their daughters or their children, So all I can say is it takes practice. You just keep doing it. I look back at some of my early columns and I think, oh, I'm appalled. I went on too long. I repeated myself too much. Oh, this is terrible writing. But okay, so I've had 10 years of practice. And it's the same for you. You're so young, you're starting out, you're getting a great education there. You're being exposed to a lot of ideas. You're going to reject some and take some as your very own. You probably have writers that you will emulate. I know I started that way, emulating the writers that I admired. And before you know it, you will develop your own voice and style, and you will transcend those people that you emulated, because you have your own voice, and it will come. But don't be discouraged and don't expect it to happen overnight. Just pick something really powerful that moves you and let that be your starting point.